Hi there, I'm Colin, aka the Tone Wizard, and I hope you're doing very well wherever it is that you may happen to be. I'm doing very well, thank you very much for asking. Let me tell you, I've had a fantastic day with my little son. Took him to the park this morning and took him for a hike this afternoon, and I'm fucking exhausted. But it's a good tired. I tell you, I've been tired from staying out too late, drinking, doing drugs, strippers, just being a general idiot, playing music, all kinds of things that are somehow regrettable in the light of day. But this tired feels good, man. I'm tired from being a dad. That's what it's all about. Life changes, life moves on, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever it is that you may be. Indeed, another sip for the Tone Wizard here. Now, a couple of weeks back, I did a video on Greta Van Fleet, and it got 6,000 views and counting, which is pretty good for my little channel. 200 plus likes and 180 plus comments. It's probably the most engaging video I've done to date on the channel. And by the way, thank you for all the new subscribers, likes, and views to the video. Thank you very much. I look forward to chatting to you in future videos. But I reacted to the Greta Van Fleet song, Meet the Master, which came out, I believe, a few weeks ago, around the time that I did the video. But I also wanted to explore why the band gets so much hate and some of the common complaints and comparisons about the band. Now, to summarize the general sentiment of the hundreds of comments that I got and reactions to my reaction video, I'll simply say this. Greta Van Fleet fans don't give a shit what you think about Greta Van Fleet. And in terms of the band, as a working band in this day and age, I think the only people that you should be servicing are yourselves creatively, which they definitely are. They're definitely doing what they want to do. And your fans. And their fans seem more than happy, as is evidenced by some of the comments that I'm going to read out in a minute. But to that end, I can only applaud Greta Van Fleet, and I wish them nothing but success. Now, to be honest, they're not a band that I really like, to be honest, and they're not a band that I listen to. But on that note, if you are a Greta Van Fleet fan, and I thank so many of you for watching that video and getting involved in my channel, please throw me a recommendation for a track that you think could sway me, could give me a little tilt and get me into music. I'm always down for new bands and new music. I understand they have a couple of albums out, but also, I just would like to say that even though I really only listened to that song, Meet the Master, once, I can still hear it. If I think about it in my head, I can still roughly remember the structure. I can hear the vocal lines. I can hear the big parts that he did that I'm not going to try and recreate for you here. Bald man, a couple beers deep here. This is not the time to take wild vocal swings. But I can hear the guitar lines and some of the instrumental stuff, and I can still remember the song. So to me, that's evidence of some pretty good songwriting, and maybe I like that song, and that's cool. I think I should give it another go. But please let me know in the comments if there's a song that you think is a must hear thing, and it doesn't have to be one of their big hits, but I will check it out, and I will probably cover it in the future on my channel. Now, all that being said, let's dive into some of these comments and see what you, the Greta Van Fleet fans, had to say about the general conversation around the band. And I won't regurgitate any of the cliches, and I'm sure some of them are going to come up in the comments that I'm going to read to you. But also stick around, because after I read out those comments later in this video, I'm going to show you two 30-second clips of other bands that kind of sound like certain crotch-bulged, shrieking guitar bands from the 70s. And you can make your own conclusions. We'll talk about that later. But let's get into these comments, because I read all of them. I always do. I often respond. And thank you very much for getting involved with my channel. And please feel free to let me know what you think of anything I say in this video down in the comments, because that's why I do this channel. I like talking about music. I like exposing myself to new music, and I like interacting with you guys on the internet. This is why it's fun. So cheers. Let's get into this. So I'm going to start off with a couple of negative comments, and like I say, there were only a couple. Some of them were just aimed at me, if I'm honest. But here's a comment from Scott Pollock. Here's my problem. I'm going to read it in what I think the tone of his voice would be. Here is my problem with Greta Van Fleet. To compare them to Led Zeppelin, the iconic band that dropped their first album in January of 1969, is such a slap in the face to Led Zeppelin that it defies logic. Angry breathing and drinking, presumably. Greta Van Fleet's lead singer, Josh Kiszka, doesn't sound like Robert Plant and spends more time screaming. And this is where you're losing me right here already, because if anybody spent a lot of time screaming, it was definitely Robert Plant. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Spends more time screaming than singing, which is like running your fingers down a chalkboard. Not even close, people. I love it when people use the term people angrily, like I kind of just did. My stepdad used to say that all the time. You people! You people! He'd get all drunk and angry, but that's not what this is about. We can do another video about that if any of you are interested. A lot of denim, short temper, a lot of liquor. Anyways, you're going to compare Jan Bonham, heralded as the best rock drummer in history, to Daniel Wagner from Greta Van Fleet. Are you kidding? What about Jimmy Page versus Jay Kiszka? OMG. Oh my God. Angry breathing. Last but not least is John Paul Jones as Sam Kiszka. Anyone with, and I kind of cut it off there. But for a guy that said that the comparisons aren't good, I think he just made quite the comparison in that he feels one act might be a little lesser than the other. But Hulinka kind of commented down there, so don't compare them. And that's exactly the point. You're one of those people that constantly post derogatory comments under their multiple videos. So I believe what Hulinka is saying is that Scott Pollock has been making negative comments on the Greta Van Fleet's page. And look, man, I do a lot of shit on the internet. I've definitely got into some comment rows over the years, but the idea that somebody, would actively plan, because you kind of have to set aside the time to do this, but somebody would set aside the time to go on to Greta Van Fleet's music videos and tell them that they're crap or they're Zeppelin or whatever is ridiculous. Anyways, Hulinka says people are sick of the comparisons, but it's people like you who keep them alive, and that's exactly right. And you know what? Maybe my videos are contributing to that. If they are, I'm sorry, but I'm interested. This is an interesting topic to me. Why? It's almost like an obsession. I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan myself, but I find this behavior really cringy and annoying. Anger, fear, that's what I read in your comments. Chill. And Scott Pollock comes back with anger and fear.
Fearful of what? I'm simply stating a fact, meaning comparing Greta Van Fleet to Led Zeppelin is ridiculous and nothing less, brother. Let me tell you what, it's my opinion and I stick by it, man. All right.
That reading took a little bit of a turn, but that's Hulinka said, I don't know, maybe, but I do fear you might have a stroke if you said that. If I said that out loud, yeah, some intense stuff. So Scott Pollock, not a fan, and thinks that comparing them is ridiculous because in his elaborate comparisons, he thinks that the comparisons are ridiculous comparisons. Okay. And here's a comment from Jane Bradley, and it's a comment about me. Too much negativity from you. You should listen without judgment. You seem to go into this with the attitude that you're not going to like it. No, you're wrong. I don't think you watched my video even. I think maybe you heard the first part of it. It is an expeditionary dip into the water that I took, and to be honest with you, in the day and age we live in, negativity spreads faster than positivity, and I had only overwhelmingly heard the negativity. That's sad, and that's a failure on my part to come into a little bit more knowledge, but that's also the process of what I was doing in the video. So thank you for watching. I'm always up for a little criticism, okay? And I appreciate watching. I appreciate views regardless. Okay, so now we're going to move on into the positive stuff because there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of positive comments, and I thought that this would illustrate the fact that the fans indeed do not give a shit what people think about their band or the fandom. So Margic says, I would love them to become a real clone of Led Zeppelin because I would love them even more because now they sound too much for me as Greta Van Fleet. No idea what that means, but I think they like everything on Earth. Shane Ryan says, Zepp took a lot of their ideas from Black American musicians who no one really heard of much. People get very touchy around them, which is fair. People get nostalgic looking back, but these guys got some talent, and why not enjoy it? I mean, every song on the radio where I live is the same crappy dancer rap song that's made on a computer. I know which I'd rather listen to, and those are fair points. And you're going to see this kind of sentiment come up again and again in the comments. And that's a fair comment with, you got a band smashing shit to make noise, vibrating shit to make noise, and screaming at the top of their lungs to try and rock you in an age where, yeah, most shit is just put together, lined up on a click track and spat out. I mean, even a lot of rock music's like that. I mean, you listen to modern metal now, and it literally just sounds like drum machines and programmed guitars. Anyhow, Darla Krupa says, sad about the negativity. Usually it's jealousy. Here's to stopping such negativity. I stand with you, Darla, and I stand with beer. Gigabee says, thank you for defending them. And again, thank you for watching the video. I was just looking to dip my toe into the water, and this is why I do my channel. I'm still not the biggest fan of the earlier stuff, which does sound more like Zeppelin. That is probably the first impression everyone is sticking with. Yes, first impressions are important, and like I say, negativity travels faster than positivity, but I love their last album. People will complain because no one makes music like this anymore, but then still complain when it sounds too much like the music they miss. You can't win. And that, Gigabees, is the point of the fucking of life right now, you know? You can't win, I'd say, would be a prevailing moral. And that's what I'm going to teach my son, is as soon as he grasps those 3 words, you can't and win, I'm going to tell him, you can't win, buddy. So try your best and have as much fun as you can doing it. Terry G, my homegirl Terry G, chimed in and said, I feel like it's all about perspective. The perspective of those around Led Zeppelin's prime is that they are untouched, but Greta Van Fleet is doing their own thing this time. The perspective of those of us experiencing them right now may think that they are not untouched as well. To deny their talent is ridiculous. That being said, everyone can't like everything. Very sensible and balanced opinions. You know what? If you look at a continuing thread in the positive comments, you'll notice reasoning, rational, and logic. If you look at people's angry comments about this stuff, and there was some stuff in the held for review section of the comments that I'm not going to read because I don't even want to proliferate that kind of bullshit. But usually people with a positive attitude in general tend to be a little more intellectually constructive. So thank you very much for that comment, Terry G. Now, Daniel Aloia says the terrible truth is that Greta Van Fleet are better than Led Zeppelin. And that is oh shit, dipping some beer, because that's that is a hot take, folks. Let me know in the comments. We'll do it right here. Are they better than the OG Led Zeppelin? So obviously that's up for debate, but that's a fun debate, man. Comparing great acts. That's the reason why people bought those fucking Rolling Stone magazines for the last 20 years when they were in print, is because they just used to do lists. They used to sell magazines just making lists of shit, stuff that's completely subjective and based in opinion. And they would make these lists, and half the people who were happy about it were quiet, and the loud people got angry, and thus we arrive at the internet. Clayton Sylvie says, I tried to find a Led Zeppelin song that I liked as much as I like Greta's stuff, but I just can't. No shade on Zepp, but like you said, they just aren't for me. I don't think these bands sound anything like one another other than their lead singers. And look, man, you like what you like. Part of the sentence here is something that I've said time and time again in my videos, because I kind of look at bands that have strong followings but maybe controversial press on the channel. It's kind of a common theme that I really didn't set out to explore, but it's just kind of happened. If you don't like something, maybe it's not bad, it's just not for you. So that's a fair point. After my reply, Clayton Sylvie says, you should look at Dirty Honey and see what you think. And we're going to look at a track by them. They're a bit more like Zepp, in my opinion. And Clayton Sylvie adds, and you don't hear people crying about them being a Zeppelin cover band. It's just because Greta is more popular. And that might be something. People love to knock people down just as much as they like to build them up. And if Greta Van Fleet, they're a young, shiny, moving target, people are always going to try and hate on something like that. But one thing that's always confused me is that these guys came out, they were basically kids. I think they were minors. And people were saying despicable shit about them, writing all these damn articles. And they're just bloody kids following their dreams, trying to rock. Lighten the fuck up, people. Caroline MC said, I think Greta may sound very much like Led Zeppelin in instances, but the lead singer Josh doesn't sound exactly like him. And I don't see why anyone would have a problem with this. Robert Plant himself does not. I think he gets a kick out of them from what I've seen. They are reminiscent of the classic rock era in many ways. This is why I've listened to most of their work. I'm from Robert Plant's generation, and that's interesting to note. I'm not a music critic or an expert by any means, far from it, but they put me in mind of the old days, which, when I was a kid, I like their style and appreciate their gallant efforts, and I hope they meet their hopes and dreams. And let me tell you something, you're not going to hear a word like gallant in any of these negative comments. Jeanette Wishall says, I think criticizing Greta Van Fleet based on them sounding like a classic rock band just misses the point. Yeah, man, they are a band that composes and plays classical progressive rock music. Rock and roll is over 100 years old now. The so-called British invasion is over 60 years ago. Yeah, if we're lucky, we will have more musicians composing new rock and roll with a classic rock feel. As far as the relentless LZ comparisons, the fact is we haven't heard a voice with that kind of range and power since Plant's prime. We will hear one again someday soon, too. That poor kid will probably have to put up with all the Greta Van Fleet comparisons. I'm a 48-year-old woman. When I was young, Led Zeppelin was still alternatively revered and despised. And that's a very important thing to note, Jeanette, is that Led Zeppelin throughout their career have been praised and worshipped and also despised. And if, as I pointed out in the previous video, if you look at the Rolling Stone, the coveted tome of rock worship, their first reviews of Zeppelin were horrible. And now, like I say, I think they're just online now, but their last years of print, the only way they could sell shit was by putting bands like Zeppelin on the cover. So there's a lot to think there. And she goes on to say, to hell with the critics, they'll always miss the mark and never risk anything for themselves, which is another fucking fantastic point. I think that there's definitely a group of people who hate this band who are likely musicians, and part of them is realizing that they will never make it on the scale that Greta Van Fleet has made it. And maybe they think, oh, maybe if they had just done what they think Greta Van Fleet has done and just try and rip off, not my words, rip off an artist and make music that sounds like them, they could enjoy that success. And I'm just kind of rambling here, but that's the vibe that I get. Jealousy, I would say. James Humphreys says, funny how the old guys sit around crying that all modern music is crap, yet as soon as a talented band come along, they hate them the most. Again, this has been said a number of times in the response to this video, but what I'm starting to see in this chain of comments is that there are some older viewers. There seems to be a diverse group of male and female fans who love this band, and I don't always get that kind of interaction on my channel. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of it's just male-centric. Anyways, RotoV says, haters gonna hate. I think they're a mix of various bands that influence them, like all bands are, and I have a 22-year-old nephew who studied music and is also a fan. Sorry, they're not your cup of tea. And like I say, maybe somebody will recommend a track to me or an album, and I will get into it. You never know. Never close doors. Rick Lennon says, I'm much older than you, but not as bald. Hey, there's always time, my friend. There's always time. I love them, and this is one of their best songs. I've listened to it many times and will continue to listen to it even more than I listen to Led Zeppelin. And I would also like to throw this question out to you guys. If you're a fan of both bands, when was the last time you listened to the Zepp? Because I'm kind of tapped out on the Zepp. Part of me wishes that they would just find 5 albums of Zeppelin that I could listen to, having never heard it before. And if anything, maybe that could be the joy that some of the haters could get out of this stuff. I don't know. Tammy Pryor says, I'm 60 and I think they're phenomenal. Thank you very much, Tammy. Eric Hetter says, I couldn't possibly care less what the critics have to say about Greta Van Fleet, and I hope they don't either. They're incredibly talented, and they're writing music in a way nobody has for decades. If they're a homage to the 60s or 70s in any way, it's that they're exceptionally talented, which was not uncommon for popular bands back in those days, but is rare now, when record company suits have squeezed all the artistry out of music. My only advice I'd have for those guys is just to keep doing what they're doing. And Elaine Walls says, I am a lifelong Pink Floyd fan and haven't been impressed with newer rock bands until Greta Van Fleet. I'm so impressed. I'm dusting off my concert shoes and seeing them live. Kind King says, I'm 63 and I've been to see these kids play live 6 times so far. And I can tell you that their audiences are a mix of all kinds of people. Maybe I'll try and find a picture of some audiences to look at. Young and old, everything in between, technically diverse, and from all walks of life. It's a trip to be there with such a mix of people and all there to share the magic for one evening instead of taking sides and sowing division. And I think that is Greta Van Fleet's greatest accomplishment. And bravo. You know what? Because if you go to one of their shows, none of these hateful people are going to be there. It's a bunch of people sharing an experience of enjoying the band that they love. That's the best thing about going to concerts, and you can put that above any other experience, in my opinion, of listening to music. I traveled all through the States. I recently went down to see a show by Fish. I hadn't seen them before, but I've traveled all through the States to see my favorite band, Ween, play many times. And one of the best things about that is going to a city, people migrate in, and you have a bunch of people with common purpose and common passion, and they're easy to get along with, and everybody's there to have a good time. And that's a fantastic experience. So thank you, Kind King, for that comment. So the overwhelming consensus from the comments on my previous video is that indeed, Greta Van Fleet fans don't give a shit, a flying shit fuck what you think about Greta Van Fleet, and we can only assume that Greta Van Fleet don't either. So why don't you take up crochet? You can make yourself socks, you can make a sweater for a neighbor, you can make yourself just a hood that covers your head so you don't have to experience reality, albeit through the filtered light, kind of coming in through those deeply crocheted patterns. In any event, find something else to do with your life aside from hating something, and I think you'll be happier for it. Now, just to kind of hammer in the point here of why all the hate indeed. Why do people hate this band? I'm going to play you clips from two other bands, short clips, that also kind of sound like a certain 70s band. And I ask you, why aren't people casting such aspersions at these bands? So here's the Rival Sons with Pressure and Time. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's a thumping song. That's all I can say. Who gives a flippin' fuck what it sounds like? If it moves a room, if I was in a bar somewhere, dirty bar, somewhere in the southern United States, spending my poorly converted Canadian dollars on cheap but comparably expensive and weaker beer, and this band was rocking, I would have a good time. Now, here's another clip from a band called Dirty Honey. It's Rolling Sevens. 'Cause now you know all my vices. Yeah, and you know where I've been. So baby, take another toast of the days. We rolling sevens again. We need a little loving. Baby, what'd you think about that? Does that sound like somebody to me? It sounded a little bit like Hell's Bells to me. The bass player kind of looks like Slash without the top hat, and they're rocking. But you know what? Who's being hurt? Who's being hurt if they sound a little bit like another band, huh? Find something better to do with your time. I think that's the message of this video, is find something better to do with your time than hating on these goddamn bands. Anyways, I'm going to end it there. Please let me know if you have anything you'd like to add down in the comments. If there's something you'd like me to check out in the future, also put that down there in the comments. And don't forget to let me know what you think the definitive Greta Van Fleet song is that could convert somebody who's now teetering on the fence into getting on that band. Most importantly, take very good care of yourself. Enjoy your music. Get a little beer in you if that's your thing. If it's not, do something else. It's none of my business how you get your kicks, you dirty person. Anyhow, cheers. Take care.